Welcome to the Your Limitless Leadership Podcast with Jenny and Brent Widman. Here, we believe leadership isn't just about titles. It's about how you show up in every aspect of life. Whether you're leading a business, building a legacy as an entrepreneur, guiding your family, or striving to lead yourself first, this podcast is for you. Join us as we dive into real conversations about growth, decision-making, and the courage it takes to lead with purpose. Get ready to be inspired, challenged, and equipped to become the limitless leader you are meant to be. This is Your Limitless Leadership Podcast. Let's lead without limits. All right, welcome to Your Limitless Leadership Podcast, and I'm excited for this one today. You, in your life, and you may not know this, but you come across people that, and his name's Doug Monson. I'm just going to say that right off the bat and then introduce him. But I have not talked to him for years. But there are people that come in your life that and you probably don't know this, that I feel this way about you. So I'm just telling you right now that when you see their name and you see their face, you just smile because you know how great of a person they are. And I don't know, I was thinking about you, obviously, before I asked you to be on here, like just your personality and who you are. And what I remember of you years ago going to college together, just your drive and the way you, honestly, man, the way you cared about people and you would always make time for people if they had questions and talk to them. And you may not even think that's a big deal, but it shows a lot in what you have accomplished in life too at the same time. So just from me to you, thank you.
Cry right off the bat.
That's who you are. I mean, you may not see it, but that is who you are. So,
well, yeah, I appreciate that.
Just a quick intro and then we'll get into it. But he's from Emmons, Minnesota, which I love this. It's 450 people, which tells you about his values and who he is, because you cannot grow up in a small town like that. And everybody knows who you are and what you do. And people know you. So you have to be. What made me laugh when he sent me this, his background, he says, is a little weird. And he referenced the movie Tommy Boy, where people go to school for 9 years and they're not, well, that's not him. He went to school for that long. But the cool part is you have a double major, man, which tells us a lot about just what you have done. And that's from Mankato. So that's where I met Doug years ago, and when he touched my life. So from there, which is I don't want to steal the whole thing from the railroad because I want to hear about that. Like, how'd you end up in the damn railroad, right? And then obviously get into the career at the Free Press. We're just kind of talking about as well, being just doing that. And you think, okay, now I've started the path and I've kind of made it. And that didn't, like, just with money and everything else, that just didn't come to fruition, really. And I want to hear about that. And then the leadership aspect that started to happen over time. When he went to Minnesota Soybean, that it actually became Ag Management Solutions. And that's where he really found his ground. And I believe you're still there.
Nope.
Or if you moved, where are you at now?
I came to Forward Minded Media in June of this past year.
Okay. I love hearing about that too. And then just the way you talked about your kids too, Tyler and Emmett. And it's crazy. We were just talking about getting old. So I'm 50. He's close to 50, which means our kids are older too at the same time. So yeah, it just kind of puts things in perspective and the love of sports and baseball and all the things that go with it. And this says a lot about who you are too, but just you adopted them.
Yeah.
And that's not normal. That's right there. About who you
are. Well, boy, I could talk, I'm a storyteller. I could talk stories on every single thing you just mentioned.
Love it.
But I'm going to talk a little bit about the adoption process. It's a daunting thing to go through when you grow up thinking that you're going to have this life that everyone's having, right? And when you and your wife can't have biological kids, it changes things. And there's this roller coaster of emotions that you go through, and it's almost a loss. And then you get the excitement of being able to adopt. So I'm going to tell this crazy story with my first son, Tyler. We were selected to be adoptive parents. When you put your portfolio in, they say it's going to be like, okay, 8 to 12 months before someone selects you. And it happened in a matter of weeks. And
Really?
yeah, so we matter of weeks, and how, how the adoption process works is different state to state, and how long um, people have a right to change their mind, which is totally acceptable and something that should be, probably a longer period, to be honest with you. But at this time in life, it wasn't, and it was out of Texas, and it's just a couple days. So we were selected. She went into labor. We drove through the night. It was a Thursday, and we powered through. It was like, should have been a 20 some hour drive, and we did like 17 hours. The last 4 hours, I think every rest stop we saw, we switched. We were tired, and I was the last person driving when we came into Houston, and coming from Mankato, and I've driven in big cities, but what was 6 lanes and a lot of rush hour traffic, things woke you up real quickly. We got to the hotel, and I remember we checked in at like, I don't know, 10 in the morning, whatever it was, probably earlier. And I open up the door, and there's a lady in the, she's getting ready. I'm like, whoa, close the door real quick. And this guy looks at me and my wife, and he's like, let me fix that for you. So we get in this room, we go to sleep. We're maybe sleeping a couple hours. We get a call, and she's changed her mind. So we've driven all this way, and we're devastated. And we are talking with our agency out of Edina, and they're like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, well, let's put our portfolio back out, because when we do this, it could be a long time. One thing I forgot to add is when we were driving down, we actually talked to that mom, and what the agency told us is, her name, and she's really shy. You're going to have to get information out of her. Real sweet lady. This lady we talked to is like, hey, how y'all doing? And she was not shy at all. It was really, really crazy. So that happens. We drive back frustrated. We get back to Mankato. I think Rib Fest is going on. My brother-in-law is at my house with some beers and some ribs. And, he's like, let's go fishing to Mille Lacs on Wednesday. We got to go do that. Take care of you. I'm like, okay. On Monday, we were selected again by the same agency, by a woman with the same name, first name. And she was like a month out from being giving birth and being due, and we're like, okay, so I go fishing with my brother-in-law, and he's like, I'm sure it's going to work out, everything's going to be okay, and I don't want to get anyone's hopes up, so I'm not saying we've been selected again. And we fish, we have a good time. Probably got back at like 4 a.m. and I was sleeping, and at 10 a.m. my wife wakes me up, and she says she went into labor. I'm like, what? So a little choked up. So we waited the 48 hours, and then we drove back to Texas almost within a week of being there before. We did not stop again, but we did it a little bit more paced, so it wasn't as bad. And that's the story of how we got our first son. He was 2 days old when we met him for the first time, and became his parents. And he's a great kid, and a little bit different than my younger one, who's the complete, how as kids are. One's really introverted, one's really extroverted. But it's been a beautiful experience, and it definitely molded and shaped a lot of who I am. Yeah.
Okay, so both of these were in Texas. You had to drive all the way to Texas.
Yep.
On a whim, not on a whim, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
that is crazy, man. How does that whole process work? And I know we're into this, but this is life-changing
Yeah.
stuff. How do you get selected?
Yeah, so we worked with a group out of Edina that their whole specialty is not only finding placement agencies and connecting you with those agencies who have a mother looking to place for adoption,
Yeah.
but also they work with you on the the mental side of it. To say that that loss part that I talked about before with the biological, that's still heavy over you. There's also other things like attachment. How do you connect with a non-biological child? How do you handle things when you don't have a Caucasian child and we're Caucasian? My oldest son is biracial. He is black and Caucasian. My youngest son is black. And there's just different things you learn. Like learned, it's really silly, but had to learn about hair care in a different way. Both my kids have different style of hair. Emmett's is tight, and Tyler's got these awesome locks, curly, and he can make a fro. It's super cool. But that's part of their mental makeup too. And to not learn how to do those things and to take that time to do that, that deprives them of some of the things that they would have learned naturally throughout life. So, it was a lot of learning, and we got hooked up with this group. I've actually, early on after we adopted, we spoke to other potential adoptive parents. We would be on panels and stuff, and just talked about our experience. Is that I had a crazy story with Emmett too. So you get those experiences, and then if you're comfortable talking about them, which I'm comfortable
Yeah.
talking clearly, so that's just kind of how it all worked. It's been a rewarding experience. And thing about adoption is I don't look at my kids as adopted kids. They're my kids. They're as real as anything that any biological kid is to their parents. It's a weird way to experience love in that way. It's cool, different.
I gotta ask this. How did just that whole evolution of things and what have you, how did that shape who you are as a person? I know I'm putting you on the spot here with that, but
Well,
I would love to hear that.
That's a good question, because truthfully, at that time in my life, I had so many stressors. Wasn't getting paid a lot, and I was working weird hours at the newspaper. I eventually went back to school, so I was getting another degree because people didn't believe I could design, because newspaper design wasn't like a real thing when you got out into the graphic world. Um, had a dog and a little boy and a 4-year-old. It was intense. But how did it shape and mold me? I guess early on, I would say I learned to draw off my wife's energy. Um, I think we reversed roles as we got older. I got more calm, and she got more um, worried. I was really worried when they were little.
Yeah.
I worry now, but I feel like I can talk to them about stuff, and we can plan for any kind of scenario, and then it's up to them to make those good decisions. But when they're little, it's so much harder, and they're just off, and they're going and they're going. How did it shape me? Gave me appreciation for difficult times and adversity, and understanding that the more we get through it, the better we are on the other side of it.
I feel like you have to, and even the driving down their story, that it changes who we are as a person. It teaches us to be patient and to understand and to go. You got to go through hard things to really appreciate
Yeah.
what you have.
Yeah.
You
And
just do.
I saw a speaker once. I want to say that it was Colonel Schneedecker is his last name. I probably got that wrong. But I remember being in the newspaper when his tragedy happened. And I remember us covering the story, and it was in Florida, and he was serving in the Army. And he tells this story as a speaker. And he says, when you serve, they always tell you that someday someone might knock on your door, and your wife or whoever is going to open it, and it's going to be bad news. Because, but they never tell you how to handle when men come into your barracks and tell you that your wife has murdered your kids. And it crazy story. And we actually hired him to be a speaker after I heard him at this other thing. I've had several good talks with him. What he always said about adversity or tragedy is yours is yours, and nobody's is bigger or less, because they're not living that other person's adversity or tragedy. So how we all handle those moments, they're big to us, and but nobody's is more important than the others. And I just thought that message really resonated with me. I liked that thought of being able to be empathetic enough to see someone's situation and understand where they're coming from, but also understand that it's not your situation, and you have your own stuff going on, and work through your stuff. So, and as you said, kindly about people is it's hard to resonate and to connect with people if people can't trust you, and if they feel like you're always in it to judge, to gossip, to question. So I just have always tried to be as genuine as I can. And it's never perfect, and I'm not perfect, and I screw up all the time. And I admit my mistakes, though. And if I make a mistake with a friend, I always make sure I follow back up with that friend. Those little things matter to me. So,
That's a right there. And I know this leadership and all that, but right there is the level, the vulnerability that's what builds trust. I feel like, where when you can just have a conversation with somebody and you actually have the give a shit factor, if you will, you truly care about them. Like, they know, people know
yeah.
if you're just trying to get something from them, they know that as well, too, at the same time.
Well, I think, you know, you to keep it on leadership, I think of like bosses I've had. We're a little bit older, I guess, considered Gen X. So you just get in there, do your job, leave your crap at the door. Boss is gonna be hard on me today, and he doesn't give two craps
Yep,
about me, and I'm gonna go home and gripe about him.
yep.
And I always thought to myself, if I ever had a chance to manage, I wasn't going to manage that way. I coached Little League Baseball. I did not coach. I coached from fun and fundamentals all the time,
Mm,
friends, So I always said if I was in management, I would never do that. And there is that fine line. You have to have the ability to know that the buck stops with you. Cliche, but it's true. Know that a decision needs to be made, and you're comfortable making that decision, probably to protect your team or to do it on behalf
yeah,
of your team. Um, but as I got to manage people, what I realized is that everyone is at a different point in their life. And even if I would manage someone for 5 years, which I did, the goals that they had in year one versus year five were different because their dynamics were changing. Either their family was changing, or they wanted to buy a house or a car, or life was theirs to live, and they're fighting for theirs. Um, so I had to learn that there's no one size fits all for everyone, and that was not the management that I was built to do anyhow. What struggles I found though, Brent, is when you when you let people in a little bit closer than leave your crap at the door, you take on a lot of what they're struggling with, and it could be things outside the door, it could be things inside the door, and after a while, you have to pay attention to your own mental health because it'll wear you down if you want to
definitely.
be an emotional leader. Emotional intelligence (EQ). Um, it's very important you take care of yourself if you're going to do that style leadership. But I think that people work harder and they care more when they have that type of leader. I always said to my team, we spend more time in this building than we do at our homes with the people we love that we're actually spending time in this building to make money for so we can have a life over here. You should enjoy
Yeah.
coming into the office. It shouldn't be a burden to you. And if it's a burden to you, then we need to work through it or find a better way for you to move forward, because that's not a good way to live life.
So okay, for you, when you talk, because I've never thought of it, that perspective right there, because you're one person and you have all these other people coming to you, rightfully so. That's why you chose to be that one person in that role. How do you take care of that? How do you take care of yourself and we can talk about mental health and what have you, but the things that come at you constantly, how do you just take a breath once in a while?
I was talking to a class at MSU last week, actually, and I had a question very similar to this come up from one of the students. It was a well thought out question. And I did talk some about mental health because I'm a big believer in mental health and had some experiences in personal life with that. But what I told this young lady was, get away from it. Just go take a walk. Just get out of the building. A good friend of mine owns a clothing store here in town, and he said that every day before he goes into work, he listens to a podcast while taking a walk or listens to music he enjoys to clear his head, to get his mind set. And I think that it doesn't matter when it happens, but you have to walk away from it. In writing, that I always say, write your baby and then take a break from it. Take weeks away from it. Well, we can't take weeks away from it, but that time away from it gives you a new perspective on what you were doing. So I always tried to find, heck, if I just went for a drive or went and got some food, that was good for me. That's the kind of reset I needed. But later in life, I realized that I needed probably more. I went to therapy, and I still believe in therapy. I'm not ashamed to say that, because I wasn't dealing with my own life, and I was taking on these sad stories, and stories about people I cared about, that I wanted to see them achieve things. And there has to be that fine line of how much personal kind of leaks into the work. But I can also remember an employee walking in. They were way across the room from me. They were just coming to their desk, and I knew something was wrong. And I just called them into my office right away. And this employee, I always tease this employee that they had ice veins. They never showed emotion, and I'm a very emotional person. And she came in, and her grandma had passed, and she just broke down. And being able to see that's the right kind of personal to see, because they're like, why are you here then? Go home. You don't have to be here. Talk through it and find out that she found comfort in being around all of us. So but being aware of those things, because those affect how she's going to perform that day in her job.
But also giving her permission that if she wanted to go home, she could,
Yeah.
where she may have thought, I got to be here,
Wow.
but it's a choice she made to be there too. We don't look at that at times
No.
too. And you gave her that.
You know what else we don't look at, Brent? And I learned this about my team as I was exiting that job is you don't realize how much your own attitude, behavior impacts other people. And one thing that I still to this day suck at is taking time off. Um,
Mm.
I don't know why I don't. We all need to recharge and rest. I just said that. And maybe it's a
What
glitch
they
in
say.
me that I'm a workaholic. But I always made sure everyone else was taking their time off. But I came to learn over time that they weren't even taking it because they felt guilty because I wasn't taking time off. And so our behaviors,
But
how we model ourselves, are very critical to how we lead.
they are watching you.
Yeah.
They're watching you. And if you, again, what you just said, it's not just giving them permission verbally, but it's through your actions as well. That if you're not taking that time off, and I'm going to sit here and say you need to do that, and I would encourage you to do that. You need that time off because that's how that helps us remember why we do what we do.
Yeah.
It's not just to have it off and sit at home, but you might be spending time with your kids or taking a trip or fishing or whatever it is. That's why we do what we do.
Right.
And it energizes you when you get back in too. And I think we forget that at times. We really do.
Absolutely. And at the end of
Huh.
the day, people aren't going to remember that stuff about you anyhow. So,
Nope.
yeah.
Nope. I got to ask this question because you touched on Little League
Yeah.
and coaching Little League. If you're listening to this and you're thinking, that's me, you're not alone. Let's call it what it is. You've got the drive, you've got the experience, like you have it. You have it. You know what you're doing. But something still feels off at times, or things could be better. We know that. They can be. You know there's more. What we do is we help committed leaders go from guessing and grinding to really leading with clarity and structure and confidence. We're offering complimentary DNA strategy calls. We're going to evaluate how you're leading, where performance might be breaking down. It happens. And what really needs to tighten up within your business, within your leadership, within those people around you. Then we're going to take this next step. And what we're going to do is build accountability, the skills, and the systems to create that consistent or those consistent results around it. If you're open to digging in a little bit, the link is below in the show notes. Just book your DNAcall.com and we will find time for you and we will dig in with you. All right, let's get back to it. How has that impact over time, you and your leadership and what you do on a daily basis? Because I gotta think the patience you've built there, and you talked about fundamentals and all those things, so they kind of marry each other. I would
Yeah.
venture to say.
That's it's 100% impacted my life and how I lead. I had this coach in Emmons, town of 450, but we had a great baseball program. We had a really good baseball coach. His name was
Really?
Louis Toulouse. Yes. And Louis was like a father figure to me. My dad was he was a drunk and he had a lot of problems.
Yeah.
And Louis would take me in, and I coached with him when I was too old to be in like peewees and midgets, and I was playing like Legion baseball at this time. And he taught me a lot, and he was so strong in the fundamentals. But what he really taught me is those things where we're watching. Right, he was never wrongly hard on a player. His kid played with us, and his kid struck out in a game one time and slammed his helmet on the ground. And I remember his dad from third base coach says, why'd you throw your helmet? Your helmet didn't strike out. That's kind of his mentality. He was always just a nice guy and happy and energetic. So when I started coaching in Mankato, I actually didn't have any kids. I was in college, and I coached Maba baseball for a couple of years. And then I met a guy working at the MSU Reporter, and we coached Royal Baseball, which is their traveling baseball.
Okay.
And what I learned that year has resonated with me probably in everything I do. Had this kid, these twins that were on our team, and one of the twins was bigger, hit the ball a long way. And they're 11 years old, okay? And he gets up to the plate, and strike one goes through, and he doesn't quite get it, and you can see him kind of getting emotional, and you can hear dad yelling at him. And strike two, he swings at a high ball, and he swings through it. and he starts crying, and we call timeout, and we go up there, and we're like, what's wrong? And he's clearly dad's gotten to him at this point, and he's putting a lot of pressure on a young kid, and this kid's emotional. So we tell him to get his breath, catch your breath. And like, cool thing about baseball is only takes one. Huh? It's like, only takes one. Who cares if you have 2 strikes? It's the next one that matters. And the kid just crushes it. And to me, like, confidence, instilling confidence in people and then seeing them succeed is by far it's not a drug, but it's the greatest drug in the world. It's the best feeling. I enjoy it so much. And, I've enjoyed when I've seen former employees succeed, go on to succeed, see them come back to the job and in a new person. And just know that, I was a guide on their journey. I was never the hero. They were always the hero. Just someone, every good story has that guy, until the hero figures it out and goes, wow.
Well, even just for that kid, man, that story right there resonates. I don't care who you are, where you're at in your life or career, or what have you. It's not, the stuff let's call it fail at, right?
Yep.
So is 2 strikes really failing? No. But if we don't do something correct or what have you, we feel like we're failing. But you taught him, I believe in you. Doesn't matter what you do. There's always another opportunity, and we're here to help you figure it out at the same time.
Yeah. It's tough. Defeat, failure, all that stuff is tough. But if we're willing to accept that it's just that day, and it doesn't have to be an always, then we can move past that stuff. Makes us stronger.
So bring me back. I got to hear this railroad story. How the heck do you go from graduating 2 degrees to working at a rail? Not that that's bad, but not even close to what you were doing or what you wanted to do, if you will. How does that happen?
Met a guy. I don't remember how I met him at the bar. No, I was just graduated college. I had been working at the Free Press, and I was also working at U-Haul at this time. So, things were looking up for me. But I was a part-time sports writer for the Free Press at this time, and I'm not quite at the railroad yet. And a couple of the guys that I work with at U-Haul, one of them is friends with this row, Shay, who I ended up meeting, was in a bar.
And I know that. Absolutely. Yep.
So I get a call while I'm at U-Haul, and it's the sports editor at the Free Press. And if any of you ever met him, he has got this funny cadence, how he speaks. And he's like, Doug Monson, where the hell you been? I'm at work. And he's like, well, you got to come down. I got to talk to you. I'm like, well, are you firing me? And he's like, you got to come down and talk to you. I was like, no, this isn't good. So I get down there, and what had happened is the Free Press ran a survey, and the publisher at the time determined that people didn't read sports anymore. So they cut the whole entire part-time sports staff and then moved over a news writer into sports. They thought maybe he'd quit, and he's like, this is great. I can do this till I retire. So it's actually kind of a fun story, even though it sounds horrible to everyone right now. So I bump into this Roche, and he's like, well, come work on the train yard with me. I'm like, okay. Basically what I did, Brent, is I came in at 4 a.m. and at first I was a switchman. So that meant that it's a short line railroad, and we're on a rail yard. So there's 6 lines that are where they store tracks. And I would come in every morning, and they would order, 10 cars to go down to CHS to be loaded with soybean meal, soybean flour, or soybean oil. And then we'd pull them back up onto the main line because Union Pacific, it was hard for their engines to go down these hills and to get these cars.
Okay.
So as a switchman, I was given this map, and I would have to figure out where the car was on whatever rail line it was at. And then you'd have to figure out the order that it had to go down to. It was like Tetris, maybe? It was fun. Weirdly, I found out I like visual math a lot. It became a problem solving. Every morning I'd map out where the cars would go, and then the person would be driving train, and they would be pulling cars back. I would tell them to take it back, and when it cleared the switch, I'd tell them to stop, and then I'd flip the switch, and I'd tell them to bring it to the next set of cars. And as you get closer, you're like 3 cars, 2 cars, car, half, truck, stop. But they're already stopping because it takes a long time to stop a train. And as I did that, I was a good worker, and he's like, you want to learn to drive the train? I was like, sure. And so eventually I earned my locomotive engineer operator license, I think it was called. I still know that long, short, long is rail crossing. So we would go down to the CHS here in Mankato, and you had to cross
Yep.
two roads as you go there in in a residential area. And at 4 a.m. most days I would be like, do 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 do, but sometimes this little kid would come out and throw rocks at us and give us the finger. So I would be like, "Mwah," as loud as I could, and there was never a dull moment. I saw a couple of derailments, unfortunately. That
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, and I also saw the power of a train car. They have follow points on a train yard like that, where the main track's going through or other tracks are near
Yeah.
each other, and you always have to clear the follow point, because if you don't, the cars will clip. One time, one of my coworkers hadn't cleared the follow point, and just two ladders going maybe 2 miles per hour. These two ladders came together like this, and they both just crumpled back like they were butter. Just whoop, and I was like, "Wow, it would have ripped a human being apart." So I did the train yard until the Free Press had a full time job, and I went and applied
Okay.
for it, and I got the job, and then I just started doing that the rest of the time.
What did you do? Okay. Again, I go back to this with the train yard, but from everything we do, I know that we learn and take away something. Because again, it's not normal to go to work at 4 o'clock.
No, 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 and I'd work 2 hours and then come home, and then I'd do it again in the afternoon. And I
Okay.
got paid for 8 every day. If I worked more than 8 in a day, I
Really?
got overtime in the day. Train was good. I just did that business didn't have any kind of benefits or
Yeah,
insurance. Um,
gotcha.
what did I take
Tell
away
me.
from it? Planning.
Yeah.
Planning.
Yeah.
First taught me how to yeah, I've kinda always been shoot from the hip person,
Okay.
and I feel like I'm good at that, but truth is if we don't make plans, we can't pivot when the plan goes wrong very, very easily. So, that brought in I took that kind of planning for those cars and figuring out how to get them in the right order, so we're taking them down, they can be loaded properly. Go to the Free Press, where I'm a layout editor for sports, which meant I would get so the news people, they would come in at 2 o'clock. We'd have our meetings. They're called budget meetings, and it was really a
Okay.
budget was how long a story was going to be, that kind of stuff, how much you had to get in your
Okay.
section. News people would start right away, and they'd be putting in wire stuff, and they'd be putting in the local stories. And for me, I wasn't going to get stuff till about 9 o'clock at night. And in the early days, I had like on a weekend, I had till midnight to design, but in the latter part of it, I had from 9 to 10:45. Sometimes it was 4 pages, sometimes it was 8 pages. You are living in chaos once that first story comes in on the sports desk. And what made me a better leader, or I guess person, not even leader, just for me, it was I mapped it out every night. I got in, and I, even if I didn't know it, I would guesstimate some of the things that would have to go in there. I draw it all out, and I knew exactly what I was going to do. Inevitably, every night something was going to go wrong, and we were going to have to pivot. But having that map already made me like, okay, well, I know that if I change this over here, then I can put that there, and I can move this here. And it's amazing when you get into leadership and management, someone comes in and is like, we got a problem. I had 15 clients in my last job and 10 employees. We got a problem. What's the problem? Well, we got to do this for this, and we missed this. Okay, cool. Let's do this, and this. And then you got another one person coming in. Hey, we got a problem on this account. What's going on? So it was constant. Like you had a plan for them, because we make plans early in the year and then we adjust
Yep.
them every few months. But it was constantly like that changing of pace, and that stuck with me throughout. And I actually think a lot of that came from the train yard, yeah. And
Well,
swearing, they swore really bad on the train yard. And the Free Press taught me to swear even more. So journalists swear a lot. Disgruntled.
that is just that whole evolution. That is fascinating to me because it's the things we learn. When you said I used to shoot from the hip, or I do shoot from the hip.
Yeah.
Sometimes leaders or people, we pride ourselves on that. But if you couple in the things that you're not as good at, is basically what you're saying. It wasn't your high point. It wasn't what you're great at, but you said, you know what? I got to learn this because that's what I have to do. Well, then it helps in every other facet of your life too, and especially your next position at the same time.
Yeah. It definitely impacted my life. That's for sure.
I bet. Okay, so tell me about now. When you, and obviously you've moved in this position more
Yeah.
recently. So what was the evolution of that? How did that happen over time? Who are you leading? What are you doing? What have you?
So I work for Forward Minded Media. I am VP of Ag. Um, Forward Minded Media is a digital marketing agency, and I think that's a poor way to explain us, to be honest, because when I came here, our skill set was hyper targeted digital advertising. Brent, you're talking about a product. Boy, a couple hours later, you're getting ads for that product on your phone. Well, that's what
Yep.
we're really good at.
Okay.
But what I've learned is that we have this hidden gem of a video department that is by far and away blows. Sorry to all our competitors here, but I've through my
Love it.
former life at Ag Management Solutions, I have hired some high-end videographers. I have hired people that do some amazing digital work, and these guys are as good, if not better. And they don't. I don't want to say this because I don't want them to leave, but they don't belong in Mankato. They belong in like a big market where people are just eating this stuff up, and they're doing a fantastic job. So it's funny. What we are and what we'll become are going to be two different things. The company's a year and a half old. Just last week, I got to go back to my roots and help a local community business with having to close up the shop. And we got to do some PR around that. That business owner came in, was distraught, and was just frustrated and felt like she had failed. And after listening to her and talking to her, I'm like, "No, you didn't fail. You're retiring." And that's how we phrased it publicly because that's what she was doing. And it turned what was a tough, difficult situation for her into a celebration of her. So, like, we can work on PR. Why I say we're evolving is we've brought in several people with different skill sets, and we have the ability to do a lot of different things. And I basically ran a mini marketing agency for the last 7 years. So it's not like we don't have the experience to figure out and evolve into what we'll become.
So you've been there a year and a half.
Here I've been since June. No, no. Yeah. Sorry to my friends.
They've been open a year and a half, you said. That's right.
Yeah. I met Jake Ward, who is the founder of Forward Minded
That's what I was
Media,
gonna ask.
when I was still with AMS. I had some
Okay.
clients that needed some help getting people to register for their expos, and it was late in the game. And I'm like, this guy's been trying to get me to buy some digital marketing, and we're maybe butting heads on a couple things because we're both probably cocky men, and I buy through them, and I see instant results. I see registration goes up ridiculous. I think one of them, we in like a week and a half time, we signed up 300 people. And I was like, okay, there's something to this, but I want to understand it more. So I started to do different buys through them, different types of digital products. And most everything had success. You're not going to hit a home run every time, but it made me start thinking that I was already thinking this way. I had been researching it for a client for a while, and I was learning about how people stream into TV, how people do audio ads. So I was very, very intrigued by what he was doing, and we met many times. And one day I texted him. I was sitting at a local bar with a friend. I said, I'm sitting here at this bar, and I'm wondering why you haven't offered me a job yet. And nothing. And he doesn't reply, and he doesn't reply. I turned to my friend and I said, I think I overplayed my hand. And a couple minutes later, he walks in the door and he's like, that's not a question or a comment you do on a text. You do that in person. So he sat down with me and we talked about it and we started working through the details. And then I left my old company, and I ended up bidding against my old company for some of my former clients, and I won them and brought them to Forward Minded Media. And then they hired us to do some other stuff. So we put on a big expo in Wisconsin just a couple weeks ago, and we did all the ad sales for that, our sponsorship sales for that, and planning. And so we're growing, and things are going well. It's just, as I said, we're going to continue to evolve because we're finding
Yeah.
we can work in a lot of niche spaces. And we don't have a ton of overhead yet. You get with a big marketing agency, and one of the things that always crushes you is they do have to factor in all their employees and all their overhead. We're just small, so that stuff's kind of easy right now for us.
What made you take the chance on this?
I, hmm, my mental health was getting kind of tough at the old place, and I wasn't seeing the vision the way I used to see it there. And when I started to talk to Jake, I realized that he was sitting on something that he wanted to be a media empire, and he wanted to rule Mankato. And I was thinking to myself, this is bigger than Mankato. Um, but I felt like they needed some help. And I felt like it was
Mm.
my chance to build something again. I was a big part of the team that helped build AMS and what it became as a management association company, and then the marketing communications. I had my own contracts for that too. That was really neat seeing how that grew and how that built, and it was a good feeling. And I just saw an opportunity to do it again. Um, Scary, startup scary, and
That's what
you know,
I'm Yep.
I did. I had to adjust how my income comes in now, and it's different.
Okay.
I still have potential, but it's just different. It's different. It is a risk. Most days I'm okay with it. Actually, I'm okay with it all the time. You know what is crazy is I don't manage anyone here, and I needed that. I needed that break. But I do
Okay.
more mentoring now. We have an internship program here, and I'm constantly mentoring interns. I get a part time MSU student who grew up on a South Dakota beef farm, and she writes and she comes in and works on different things with me. And it's just nice to drop some wisdom occasionally, a nugget. We have a kid from Mankato West who's a junior in high school, excellent hockey player. Well, it turns out he's a super smart kid too, and he's in this internship program that they have where students can go out and work for a couple hours. And he did this just a horrible, mundane job for me during planning for this expo, but it's critical. It was a critical element of the things we were doing. And he did it every day, and he had to make cold calls, and he had to talk to people, and sometimes he had to take some crabby emails back to him.
Yep.
Now he's writing a magazine story for me. He's never done anything like that before. I'm not worried about what it looks like because I know that we'll get there. I'm not. I have a lot of experience in that. I'm more excited for him to just experience doing it before AI writes everything for us. See what it's like to
Yeah.
actually connect with a human being and then tell their story.
What you just said about you're you're not leading per se people here, but you are. I don't live in the world that leadership is this title.
No, no, no.
It's just the people you get to help out every day, and you can see the way you light up when you talk about it, that you're helping people like that mentorship, the interns, the next evolution of people, you're helping them understand
Yeah.
what it takes. And sometimes you got to do the mundane crap to get to sometimes you got to work at the railroad to get to where you really want to be.
Yeah.
Like that's just part of life. And I don't think we take that for granted at times, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, I think so. We also, I can be judgy about the job, right?
Yeah.
The
Yep.
railroad thing, that was a tough job, but I still very proud of that time because I
Because
came
you
home
learn.
physically, like it was a physical job, and I came home feeling good. I got tough during that time. You had to walk a lot alongside the train. You're, putting together hoses, and in the winter, those hoses didn't bend. They just didn't like Doug because I was a wimp, so I'd have to get our big my boss was a bodybuilder. He'd come in and help me out. But no, you have to learn. You can't just start at the top. Nothing ever starts at the top. I think Eddie Vedder in his song Society says, you have nowhere to go. You lose points if you start at the top. You're just going backward. And it's an interesting, I can't think of
That's a good
exactly how the line goes right at the moment, but um, it's basically you lose more than you want. So there is something to be said about enjoying and being content with what you have, knowing maybe you want more and being willing to work for that. But it's really tough with kids now. They come out of college and they're like, I'm a graphic designer. I should be paid this because this is what the internet told me. And it's like, well, I agree, but you don't have any experience and you're looking at one market versus another. And I want to help you get there, but it's not going to happen today.
You just hit it right there, that you have to learn along the way. And I want to help you learn along the way too at the same time. And that's even you taking the leap. That's why I asked that question, because that is a leap of faith. That is you saying, you know what? I see something here. I have a vision of what I want to create or help create.
Yeah.
And I want to be along for that ride. It's almost rejuvenating, is what it sounds like. And we need that. We
Yeah.
need to have
It's scary though. Like one of the kids at that MSU
for
class,
sure.
he's like, how does someone know when they're ready to jump careers? And how do you navigate that? And it's like, I don't know. I just I can't tell you how I navigated it. I made a decision. I went for it. I probably should have thought through a couple of things a little more, but they're just small things that it's insignificant in the end. It's been different. And then everyone here like speak ag to me, and it's like I didn't grow up on a farm. I learned about agriculture through ag. I mean, I worked on farms as a kid. That Emmons was surrounded by farms. I have a brother who's a dairy farmer in Massachusetts. But that doesn't mean I know farming. I know soybeans because I worked for soybeans for 12 years. You can ask me all kinds of questions about them. Um, so it's fun to also kind of not educate. I hate the word educate because people don't want to be educated, especially people who care about learning every day.
I like that.
But, to inform them, teach about ag has been kind of fun. And they've had very thoughtful questions and genuinely want to learn about it because it's a business model. It's an industry we want to bring on at Forward Minded Media. But, once in a while, I'll have a coworker who'll be like, well, tell me about crop circles. And I was like, farmers don't care about crop circles. They're not thinking about that.
Oh, I love it, man. That is, and what you just said about educate too, that's almost putting your will on somebody. But when they're asking you and you're guiding them and develop, that's a whole different ball game. That's because they want it. They're searching for it and yearning to. And what you just talked about, I want to go back to this. You committed. It's really all it is. You made a choice and you committed to it. If it works out, hell yeah. If it doesn't, you're going to be just fine.
That is the exact attitude I took when I finally made the decision. I'm like, I'll land on my feet. I have a very big network.
Believe in yourself. Yep. You've built enough. What you just said about there too. You've built a network because when you're a good human, people want to be around you. They want to help you. And that's what you just said there. You have a network too at the same time. I love the dude that he walked into the bar that you were at.
Yeah.
Instead of texting back, he knew where you were.
Yeah. I told him where I was, and I told him, in my text, I'm sitting here.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. And he did. He walked in minutes after I said to my colleague, I was just like, you know what? I think I might have overplayed my hands. So, yeah.
Right there. And that's kudos to him too. He didn't just text back. He said, you know what? I want this guy.
Yeah. Well,
I see something in him. I'm coming to get it.
It's quite amazing. I was forced to take a meeting with him at my old job. And I felt like my colleague who set it up had overstepped her bounds because it wasn't her department. And I was just crappy that day, being a little cantankerous for some reason. And my boss and her wanted me to meet with this guy. And I refused. I was like, I already have a meeting on the books. Enough. Not being a good leader, folks. Being stubborn. We all have bad days. But after this meeting, my boss says, you got to go talk to that guy. I didn't understand half the things he said, but you do, and you'd geek out. It's like, all right. So I'm in this meeting now with my boss and this coworker and Jake. And Jake's talking about Forward Minded Media. And at one point he says, well, I want to build a media empire in Mankato. And I looked at him, I'm like, I'm your damn competitor, right? And he's like, yeah, but why can't competitors work together too? And that kind of stuck with me. I kept listening to him, and then I was asking him questions. I was challenging him on things, and he later admitted to me, he goes, "You're one of the only people that's ever asked me about our CPM rates. Most people ask me what the M is in CP. It's cost per thousand, but it's a Greek or Roman numeral. So, but I was challenging just." And it got to the end of the meeting, and I walked up to him. I said, I need your cell phone number. We're going to meet again, but I don't want anyone else to meet. It's just going to be you and I. We're going to start talking. I want to ask some serious questions. At that time, I had no intention of working for him. He was my competitor, and now I had a new target. But as I worked for him, or he worked with him and did, like I said earlier, buying those packages, seeing it perform, seeing how things worked. It's the next evolution. It's already here, but it's also the future. And that's, everything we do is so digital focused that if you are not focused on that stuff right now with your company, your business, your own marketing, you're way behind the eight ball. And you can do it at a different way than traditional marketing used to work, where I'd go to the radio and I'd have this ad play, and maybe 1,000 out of the 25,000 I talk to actually care about it. Now we can just say, who is your ideal person? We will find their digital thumbprint, and we will deliver them ads when they're online in the places they'd like to go online, but not when they're not online. So you're not spraying and praying anymore. You're being hyper targeted, and it's a lot less costly through the year. So it's just it's fascinating. AI is fascinating and scary, and I'm evolving and learning at a different rate than I was in my former job. And I'm a lifelong learner, so that's the stuff that drives me a lot too, is like, we got a lot of cool stuff now.
How do people find you? Because what you just said, people need that. Like when they know their avatar and they know what they're going after or need help knowing what they go after too at the same time, there is a need for that. How do they find you?
Like our company,
Yeah, man.
forwardmindedmedia.com. We're on all the socials. There is an awesome TikTok, which I always tease the younger kids. I'm like, yeah, that TikTok thing. But they did this TikTok, and it was a play off of, why am I, Icky Woods and the Icky Shuffle. And remember he did like a Geico
Oh,
commercial,
sure.
and he's like, get your cold cuts. And they made me do that. And apparently that was well viewed, like 40 some thousand times. I was like, hey, I'm a TikTok star.
You're a star.
Well, in our space, we have to be nimble in all the digital tools. So it's great, but I am not gonna get into TikTok or get an account anytime soon. Well, I have one to monitor my kid to make sure he's being appropriate, but yeah, it's crazy. So forwardmindedmedia.com. It's easy enough. You can just email Doug at forwardmindedmedia.com. I probably have a funny story for you too.
That is fantastic. Even going back to what you said about Jake too, that his abundance mentality, that's something to be said about an owner or leader of a company too, that we can do this together. It doesn't have to be against each other too. So
yeah, I mean, probably need more of that in this world, and realize there's enough for everyone, that we could be better together than fighting against each other. That would be nice, but it's also, people are very competitive, and business can get, unfortunately, personal, especially like Jake. He invested his own time and money to start this company, so
he's doing it.
Yep.
Thank you, man. I truly appreciate you being on here. I really do. It was fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for all the kind words. I appreciate it. That was nice.
Thanks for joining us on the Your Limitless Leadership Podcast with Jenny and Brent Whitman. We hope today's conversation inspired you to think differently about leadership, not just in your career, but in every part of your life. Remember, leadership starts with leading yourself first. It's about taking action, making bold decisions, and showing up with purpose. Now, it's time to take what you've heard today and put it into practice. Whether it's in your business, your community, your family, or your own personal growth, start leading without limits. You have the power to become the leader you're meant to be. Until next time, keep pushing your boundaries and leading with purpose.